Jack Della Maddalena against Islam Makhachev presents itself as one of the most intriguing clashes of the entire UFC calendar this year. The duel draws so much attention, not only because of the sporting aspect, but also because of the historical weight it may carry. Islam Makhachev, considered by many the best pound-for-pound fighter today, made a surprising decision to give up the lightweight belt at the beginning of the season, right after Jack Della Maddalena dethroned Belal Muhammad at UFC 315. The choice, to abandon a division where he had already consolidated his supremacy, to move up in weight and face a heavier and equally dangerous opponent, further increased the interest around this fight. Since then, analysts, former fighters, and fans have dedicated themselves to imagining how this clash might unfold inside the octagon. The narrative is not limited only to who will win, but rather to the clash of styles. On one side, Makhachev's suffocating grappling, dominant wrestling, and tactical discipline. On the other, Della Maddalena's sharp boxing, striking power, and impressive durability. Most betting houses and specialists, so far, point to the Russian as the favorite, largely due to his impeccable resume and the consistency shown over the past few years. But not everyone believes that Makhachev's favoritism will be confirmed inside the cage. One who sees the fight differently is former UFC middleweight champion Robert Whitaker. On the matchup, Whitaker commented the following, open quote, "I'm going to go with Jack. I think Jack has that X factor. I think he has the guts, the grit, the determination to fight the takedowns, to fight the ground, to fight the takedown attacks that Islam is going to go for. And I think in a striking fight, straight up, Jack is better. I think he wins in the hands. I think Jack has the better game to strike over 5 rounds than Islam does, as well. Especially if Islam is trying to go for takedowns during the fight." Close quote. Although Makhachev opened as a heavy favorite in the betting houses to conquer the second belt of his career, Whitaker made a point of making it clear that Della Maddalena cannot be underestimated. For him, the Australian is in a comfortable position, without much pressure, while all the weight falls on the Russian's shoulders. Again, the former champion analyzed in depth and declared, open quote, "People sleep on Jack's grappling game. Sleep on his jiu-jitsu. I don't think Islam is going to be as gung-ho with the takedowns as everybody believes, because Jack has that level of offense off his back. I think Jack is in a better position to take advantage of the things that Alexander Volkanovski couldn't. He's got better hands, especially over 5 rounds. Jack's tight fighting is so high level. Skill-wise, I think they both have their strengths. I don't think either one of them is overly superior in any which way. Islam is the better wrestler, but Jack has the grappling to kind of threatens. That, not to mention, he's got the tight boxing to make him pay for anything he doesn't pull off well. I do think Islam has got the kick superiority, and if Jack doesn't address that, which he hasn't in a lot of his fights, he's going to get kicked a lot. Islam likes throwing kicks. He used that very well against Volk. I think that's going to be a game plan of Islam. External factors aside, Jack has nothing to lose. And I think Islam's got everything to lose." Close quote. Whitaker's analysis goes against what many specialists have been pointing out, since confidence in Makhachev is gigantic. However, the Australian brought up important points that could redefine the narrative of the confrontation. The psychological pressure on the Russian and the surprise element that Della Maddalena may carry. Another former champion who decided to position himself on the fight was Daniel Cormier. The former UFC double champion, known for his technical knowledge and closeness to Makhachev's team, surprised by making a curious warning even before the official announcement. Cormier stated that Islam should work on wrestling, a statement that drew attention precisely because that is considered the Russian's strongest point. After the fight was officially confirmed, Cormier revealed even more astonishment upon discovering the size of Makhachev's favoritism in the betting houses. On that, he commented, open quote, "Wow, Islam's minus 265, Jack plus 225. That's a little bigger than I would have expected." Close quote. With this contrast of opinions between Whitaker and Cormier, the duel between Jack Della Maddalena and Islam Makhachev gains even more layers of expectation. On one side, confidence in an established champion who has already shown his strength at lightweight. On the other, the belief that the challenger to the title of best in the world can be surprised by a relentless and bold striker. What is certain is that when both enter the octagon in New York, the whole world will be watching to find out who is really right. After the Australian star won the welterweight belt earlier this year, it was clear that the former #1 pound for pound would be his first challenger. The UFC quickly lined Jack Della Maddalena up for the defense against Islam Makhachev, and since then, the mixed martial arts community has been intensely debating this clash that is already born historic. Within this context, a former UFC title challenger, who has been following JDM's evolution closely for quite some time, pointed out that he sees in the champion some fundamental weapons that could bring serious difficulties to his next opponent. For many analysts and fans who believe that Jack Della Maddalena will come out victorious at UFC 322, the main reference will inevitably be his performance against Belal Muhammad at UFC 315, when he won the title. One of those impressed was fellow Australian Steve Erceg, who in an exclusive interview with Bloody Elbow commented the following, open quote, "I've known for a very long time that Jack is an amazing fighter. He's really good, and he shocked me on how good he was. He handled the grappling exchanges so well, and it's the best striking performance I've seen from him. The big moment. He rose to the occasion. It was fantastic to see. I do think that the grappling from Islam, he's a better technical grappler than Belal is, but he's not quite as big. He's not as imposing." Close quote. Islam Makhachev, before deciding to give up the lightweight belt and move up in category, was a dominant champion. However, even within his phase of supremacy, the Russian starred in some very competitive fights. Erceg recalled one of those close battles at lightweight, highlighting that Della Maddalena could replicate that kind of resistance, but with even more danger because of his style and power. On that he stated, open quote, "If you look at the Dustin Poirier fight, Dustin was able to stop some of his takedowns and win some scrambles and stuff like that. I think not only will Jack be able to do that, but when he lands punches, it's going to be way more devastating." Close quote. The example cited by Erceg is emblematic. At UFC 302, before Islam Makhachev submitted Dustin Poirier in the 5th round, 2 of the judges had on their scorecards the need for a knockout or submission by the champion to guarantee the victory. The Diamond, even as an underdog, managed to have moments of success by keeping the fight standing and landing clean shots. Still, Makhachev showed evolution in his striking game and proved that he is capable of competing in different areas. 4. Jack Della Maddalena and his team. This duel will certainly be studied in detail. The difference is that the Australian carries with him a significant physical advantage compared to the opponents the Russian faced at lightweight. He is bigger, stronger, and has proven knockout power. This combination could turn what would already be a tough test into a true puzzle for Makhachev, who for the first time will face a natural champion of the 170 pounds division. UFC 322 approaches as one of the most anticipated editions of the year, not only for the magnitude of the event in New York, but for the narrative of 2 worlds colliding, the technical and strategic dominance of one of the greatest grapplers in history against the aggressiveness, power, and precision of one of the most promising strikers today. Regardless of the result, the clash promises to be historic. Imagine the scene. Madison Square Garden packed, the lights off, the expectation in the air. On one side, Islam Makhachev carrying the weight of being Khabib's successor, the fighter who gave up the lightweight belt to prove he can reign also among the welterweights. On the other, Jack Della Maddalena, the new champion who rose like a meteor, with the confidence of someone who has nothing to lose, and the lethal coldness of a striker who knows that a single strike can change the entire narrative. Now tell me, does the overwhelming favoritism of the betting houses really make sense? Or are we, as Whitaker warned, about to see one of those surprises that go down in UFC history? This is the provocation that this duel brings. On one side, we have experts like Cormier reminding that even the best grappler needs to work on wrestling, which sounds almost like a contradiction in itself. On the other, Whitaker and Erceg pointing out that Jack is not just a boxer. He has grappling to trouble, offensive jiu-jitsu to threaten from the bottom, and hands heavy enough to punish any mistake. And we cannot forget, if Dustin Poirier, with all his defensive limitations, managed to take Makhachev to a point where he desperately needed a finish to win, what can Della Maddalena do? A bigger, stronger guy with much more punching power. This is where the narrative turns into something almost cinematic. Islam enters pressured, with everything to lose, carrying the status of #1 pound for pound, defending the honor of an entire Dagestani dynasty. Jack enters as a free challenger, bold with the lightness of someone who can become a legend, just by spoiling the established champion's party. It is a clash of worlds, discipline and suffocation against killer instinct and surgical precision. Who will dictate the pace? Who will break first? Who will write the next page in UFC history? And perhaps this is the true beauty of this confrontation. It is not just about a belt. It is about legacy, about the courage to take risks, about the brutal unpredictability of MMA. If Makhachev wins, he not only conquers 2 belts, but solidifies his name among the greatest of all time. But if Della Maddalena shocks the world, the UFC will see the birth of a new monster, a champion who toppled the pound-for-pound king, and who may start an unprecedented era in the welterweight division. And that is why UFC 322 will not be just another event. It is already historic even before the octagon door closes. Because when Islam and Jack finally face off in the center of the cage, it will not just be a fight. It will be the moment when we find out whether the Russian Empire remains sovereign, or whether a bold Australian will forever change the map of world MMA. This is the kind of clash that we don't just watch. We live it, feel it, breathe every second. Because regardless of who leaves with their hand raised, one thing is certain. This fight will be marked in all our memories as one of those chapters that redefine the sport. This is the true spectacle. And it is impossible not to be eager to see how this story will be written.